Welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit. I'm Alexa Bigworth, your host, and today we're going to be digging into the topic of community and why building a community of writers is so important to you on your writing journey. If you're already part of the Write, Publish, Sell community on Facebook or any of our communities that we have, you can really get a feel for how nice it is to have people around you that can answer your specific questions, that can listen to you vent to things that no one else in your friends or family network can understand if they're not writing, and to just have that place where you can go and ask questions and get support for you on your journey. There's so much to learn with publishing a book, regardless of genre, regardless of route that you take, whether it's self-published or traditional or hybrid. It's a never ending. I'm sure you figured out now by watching this summit, there's so much to learn and take in. So when you have your buddies around you to help out, it really makes a big difference. And community has been a tremendous part of my journey. Today, we are interviewing Erin Casey. She graduated from Cornell College in 2009 with degrees in English and secondary education. She attended the Denver Publishing Institute in 2009, which is really cool. We should talk about that. And has been a recruiter ever since. She's the communications and student relationships manager at the Iowa Writers House and one of two directors of the Writers Room, a nonprofit corporation that focuses on creating a free, safe environment for writers, no matter their experience, gender background, and income. There's so much about you in your bio that I didn't know, and you're an ambassador in my group. Just like in her book, community is very important to her. An advocate for mental health, Erin's written and published several articles on the mighty, specifically about anxiety and depression. She's also a devoted bird mom. When not volunteering and working, she's writing LGBT, urban, medieval, YA fantasy, and sharing her literary journey on Instagram and Twitter. One of these days, she might actually get some sleep. Don't I know that feeling?
Right.
And you can find her at erincasey.org and at Erin Casey author on Amazon. And we'll post all these links, so don't worry about trying to write those down. We'll have this in her bio. So welcome, Casey. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really glad that I was able to, be one of the speakers for the summit. I think what you're doing is fantastic, and it's great to hear so many stories from so many different women and backgrounds.
Yeah, and for people who watched last year, I'm sure you've seen the shift, because last year we did a whole lot of focus on the uber professional,
Right.
A lot of businesses and experts and services and all those kinds of things. And this year it's a much heavier focus on the writers, which I really have enjoyed, because it completely is in line with this idea of community. Like, we're hearing other people's stories, and we're hearing the roadblocks that they've faced and the challenges that they've faced and why they wrote. And I think for a lot of people that are just getting started, my book. For a lot of people that are just getting started, it's really important to remember that they're not alone on this journey.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your journey then. How did this all come about? And do not let me forget to ask you about the Publishing Institute.
Yeah, of course. So I'm probably going to be that cliche person who says, I've been writing since I was a kid, but literally I was writing on college ruled notebook paper in a Lisa Frank folder, dragon stories, when I was in elementary school. So reading, that's always been part of my life. Mm-hmm. The one thing that wasn't was having a writing community when I was growing up, which is why I'm such an advocate for it now.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really didn't find fellow writers until I started role-playing with the online community. There was a series of books called Redwall by Brian Jakes, and he's one of my favorite authors, God rest his soul. And there were online forums where you could write stories back and forth with people based on his books. So that really got me into it, and also introduced me to the online literary community, because that's all I had. I didn't know where to go in person. And I was a shy, introverted author, as most people are, I find. Once I went to Cornell, I found fellow writers who were interested in the things that I was writing, but there wasn't really any writing groups on campus, except for it was more like a book group. So I helped set up Wordsmiths, which was the Cornell College writing group. And we would get together once a week and we'd write things and do prompts and sometimes have on-campus open mic nights, which was so much fun. And it's not how many years, 10 years later, it still exists on campus. So
Cool.
that actually makes me so happy. After that, I went to the Denver Publishing Institute, which is basically anything that you would want to know about publishing and marketing, you can find out there. It's a 4-week intensive course where you go through how a book turns into a novel and then how it's marketed. So you spend weeks on how to edit the books, copy edit, looking through people's manuscripts that have been acquired or are in the process of being acquired.
Wow.
They go through marketing your book and the different ways that you can do that. What I loved about it was they gave us a budget and told us, here's how much getting bookends at a bookstore would cost, or going to getting your information in an indie magazine and things like that. So you learn so much from that. And I met a lot of incredible people. And the cool thing about DPI is it's not just graduates, college graduates that go there. There was a woman that I met there that had her own publishing company, but wanted to know more about what was going on now.
Yeah.
So she came and she learned about it, and she was so sweet. But you learn with professionals, people who are in the business, and we even had people from HarperCollins come over and talk with us, and it was fantastic.
Is it just for fiction writers, or is it all for any?
It's everybody. It's everybody who is interested in publishing.
That's awesome.
It was fantastic. So I've been recruiting for them for 10 years now over at Cornell College and trying to get some of those students to go over.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, I'm assuming, you just said professionals could attend and all kinds of stuff. So will you make sure to send me the link so that we can attend? Yes. We can include that in this, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm always looking for ways to improve my publishing game, both for my own books and for the people who publish through my 2 imprints. Cat Biggie Press and Purple Butterfly Press. So, and that's, you really nailed it though, when you talked about the woman who has her own publishing company, because one of the things that I have learned is that you can never stop learning in this environment. Like, it changes. Everything changes all the time.
And that's exactly what she said. And she said she wanted to learn from other people. And it's really nice to have a lot of generations and different minds there, because we all have different walks of life.
Yeah.
So after Denver, I started working in Iowa City over as a proofreader.
Cool.
And I was having trouble finding my writing community. And the first time I finally actually found one was through National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo.
Yeah.
That's, for those of you who don't know, NaNoWriMo is
insane.
It's insane. You try to write 50,000 words or a short novella in the month of November.
Why they pick November just drives me nuts, because I'm like, it's like one of the busiest months. It's the busiest season.
That's when we're in the busy season. So I'm like working overtime, then scrambling to write my novel. But honestly, it's helped me get so much done.
Yeah.
I started meeting a lot of very interesting people there, and we would get together and do small writing groups together. And that's how I came to meet the founder of the iWriters House, Andrea Wilson. And she had an idea for Iowa that she wanted it to be a central hub for the literary community. Cool. She wanted to provide workshops and a place where people could go and they could learn more about their writing and also become a community with one another. So I started helping out with that. And I'm one of the main contacts for if you're interested in workshops, if you have questions about the iWriters House. And we have a bunch of workshops going on right now. The one that's coming up is actually called Writing Like Pie is Meant to Be Shared, and with Beth Howard, yes. And So it's going to be a combination of learning about writing and different aspects of it, and also baking pie, which is just amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's that's fun.
Right? We still have openings, and we still have openings. Again, it's in Iowa, but we do have an Airbnb at the iWriter's house, so that's wonderful.
That's so
Um,
cool.
while I was there, we started creating what we called rooms. So we divided it up into different genres. So we had a fantasy sci-fi room called the Violet Realm, which is one I lead. We have the Rainbow Room, which is LGBT, the Golden Attic, which is poetry, and then we also have like the Parchment Lounge, which is open writing to everybody. My co-director, Alex Penland, and I realized that this was a big organization that we really wanted to do and bring the community in. So we split from the iWriter's House with Andrea's blessing and created the writers' rooms. And what we do is we set up writing sessions every week based on the different genres. People can come for 2 hours. They get a literary lesson from the community. They share their successes. They ask their questions, and they work on their craft together, and they're all free. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing we wanted to make sure that we did was we provided this free location because we know, I mean, starving artists. Yeah. We know a lot of, especially young writers tend to have a lot of debt because of school. And we wanted people to just be able to meet each other and have a community. Mm-hmm. So I've been working with that for the past few years. So aside from the full-time job, I'm pretty busy with that.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Yes.
Well,
excuse me.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So, you know, you shared some resources in the Write Publish Sell group on Facebook this week. And I wanted to move into, well, first of all, let's not forget to talk about your books. You're a fiction writer. Let's talk about your books because I'd love for you to have the opportunity to share about those. And then I'd like to move into talking about like some of the online resources that are available for people that you know of, tools to help with community and marketing and things like that. Because not everybody can come to Iowa, even though, you know, if they build it, they will come. Doesn't I'm originally from Iowa, by the way.
Oh, I don't know part, if you don't mind me asking?
Sioux City.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. So, yeah.
Well, a little bit about the stuff that I'm writing. So I'm one of those people who I tend to write a lot of things and then not finish it because I get a little intimidated by, well, I used to get really intimidated by publishing, but I'm getting much better about it. The book that I recently published last year in December is called The Purple Door District. And it's an urban fantasy book about a young werebird named Bianca who's being chased by hunters. And the only chance for, yes, werebird. I'm a bird mom, so of course I'm going to be biased and want birds. The only chance for her to survive is if she finds the Purple Door District of Chicago, which is a safe haven for parahumans like herself. But the hunters are following her, and it's up to the community of werewolves, vampires, magi, witches to help protect her and their community from these dark forces. Wow. So this is part of a series. I'm actually about 50,000 words into the second one. While this part of the series is my own, it's based off of a larger series that my co-author A.E. Keller and I are working on called Fates and Furies. Mm-hmm. The Purple Door District is just one small aspect of it, and I love the idea of, again, community coming together to help each other. Yeah. So I asked her if I could do my own offset series, and she was completely fine with it. So I'm working on that, and I'm also queering a young adult LGBT dragon book.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I'm just all over the place right now. It's I actually had a publishing company that was interested in it, but I didn't agree with the contract information, which is, let me just say, very important. If you get a contract, read through all the fine ink, because
yeah, go ahead, finish that thought, and then I'll add on.
You want to read through all the fine print because they may leave certain things that you may not agree with to the end. And I know a lot of people, you'll get really excited that there's this publishing company that wants you, but you also have to protect your work and yourself as an author.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really important. I'm glad you brought this up because we actually didn't talk about contracts at all this year. And it's something I need to make a note to add in for the next year's summit. But one of the things as a publisher, I can say to everyone is that everything is negotiable.
Yes.
Everything. Wait, one thing is not negotiable. You do have to give a publisher the rights to publish and distribute your book. Like
Right.
you cannot sign with the publisher and then decide to also go self-publish your book on Amazon. Like
Right.
if you're going to go with the publisher, they get the rights to publish your book, although a lot of them will still allow you to hold the copyright. And that's just a discussion that you have to have back and forth with them. But when it comes down to like ebook rights and film rights and TV rights and all the audio rights and I mean anything under the sun that you can think of, that's negotiable. There's a lot of things that are negotiable, but you do have to recognize that publishers also receive a lot of submissions. So if you negotiate too much, they might just say, sorry, we're going to go to the next manuscript because that author is happy to come as, you know, but it is to Erin's point, like it's important and you have options and you can, and Erin turned down that particular contract and that's fine. And, you know, you have to do what makes you feel comfortable, but a lot of people will receive a contract and they just sign.
Yeah. And you really, you can't, you need to be willing to stand up for yourself. And that's why it's so important to have an agent at your side, because you're not going to understand all of the jargon. I know I didn't.
Right.
And I would have much rather had an agent go over it with me because they know how to fight the good fight for you.
Right. Or a lawyer, if you have a lawyer that can
lawyer.
read a contract. Yeah.
That as well.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I've had on some of our contracts, I've had some people just come back and say, hey, will you put this clause in there about like, I mean, it's things like they want to be, even though we in our discussions had agreed to whatever about like, say, you know, I'm a hybrid publisher, say that Random House came along next week and was like, we want the rights to your book. They're like, can you specifically put in there that if, you know, a top 5 publisher comes along and wants my book? So then we have to have a conversation and be like, well, do I want to release you to it? You know, all those kinds of things. But everything is, and I totally get it. If Random House came knocking on my door, I'd certainly, and I would want that for my authors as well, you know. But anyway, so that was an important aside because contracts are a big thing for any of you who are looking to traditionally publish.
Mm-hmm.
But community again is such an important thing because if you're in a writers forum, a writers group, a writers online group, or in person or whatever, those are the kind of questions that you can ask. And no publisher is going to say you have 24. Actually, there are some publishers that say you have 24 hours to sign. And if that is the case, you walk right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Red flags. That's one of your big red flags.
Exactly. Most publishers will give you, I mean, within reason, as much time as you need to consult with your lawyer, consult with your agent, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, so community, to be able to ask those kind of questions and get help through the process as a newbie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what are some of your favorite resources then?
For a community. Yeah. Well, of course, I'm going to say the IA Writers House and the Writers Rooms.
Yes, of course.
IA Writers House for the workshops, the Writers Rooms. The nice thing with the Writers Rooms is we have Facebook groups for each of our different rooms. So even if you're not in Iowa, you can sign up to be part of those groups. You can share work and you can look at all the different lessons that we've done in our room gatherings. Mm-hmm. We want to make it open to everybody. Okay. So that network is growing, which I can give you the information about for that as well. Yeah. One of the groups that I tend to look into a lot is Mixtus Media. And they're found on both Facebook and Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
How do you spell it?
It's Mixtus, Mixtus, and then Media, Media. And they provide a little bit of some of what you do, but the big thing with them is they have amazing blog posts
Are you
to
saying my blog posts aren't amazing? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We have not. I'm just teasing you.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
They do frequent blog posts that I have found, and yours as well.
I'm just
Found incredible when putting together my book, putting together my marketing strategy, how to reach out to readers, how to connect with readers, how to build a following and everything like that. And one of the things that I believe you both actually talk about a lot is it doesn't matter how many people you have, but rather how many engaged people you have.
Absolutely.
How many readers who are going to be interested in your work, and how many writers too. So
another aside here, if we can go this route for just a second, I bring this up because speaking of community, in the Write, Publish, Sell Facebook group yesterday, somebody asked about a giveaway, what to do for their giveaway or a download or whatever. And that was the comment that I made. A lot of people would just tell you, give away a $25 gift card to Amazon, or do this or do that. And that's great. You can build a following. You can build a list quickly with that, but it's not going to be people that are going to buy your book because they only signed up to be entered for the freebie that has nothing to do with your writing.
Right. Exactly. Some people, it is nice to generate a lot of people that way because you might catch a reader or two, but honestly, connecting with them more on a personal level is going to get you more attention than that kind of thing. That's why I try to be really an open and honest person when it comes to like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm constantly reading through other people's posts, congratulating them on successes, talking with them, especially if they are feeling down. One of the big things with community that I can't stress enough is that a lot of writers are inherently introverts, and we often feel like we have to go it alone. Yes, the writing or publishing industry is competitive, but that doesn't mean that writers have to give each other the cold shoulders. We can be there for each other. And so many writers deal with self-doubt. They feel like they're the worst writers in the world, even if they have a ton of books published. If they can't keep up with their writing, they feel awful about themselves. They're constantly comparing themselves to each other. And that's where community is so important, because we can lift each other up.
Absolutely.
One of my friends, Brian K. Morris, who does Rising Tide Publications, that's his theory, is we're all a rising tide. We're supposed to lift each other up, and then we all succeed. And when it comes to the mental health aspect, it's so important to not feel alone. And really, you aren't alone. There is a community out there who understands what you're going through. You are not the only person who's struggling. You're not the only person who feels my work is crap and it's not going to go anywhere. And the best thing we can do is be there for each other. So another great resource actually is the Twitter hashtag writing community is incredible. It has been exploding over the past couple of months, where people are following each other, they're chatting, they're sharing their experiences with one another. And I found a lot of great people to follow and just talk to on there.
That's good to know. I'll be, for those of you, and can we just talk about Twitter for a second?
Yeah, of course.
Twitter, I have found, like, Facebook is great when we're growing businesses and growing a certain following or whatever, but I have found that Twitter is like the best place for writers.
Agreed. I completely agree. You can get, it always feels like no matter what time you're posting, there's always somebody on. So you'll get some kind of response that way. There's also different, Pit Mad, Pitch Wars, different things like that, where you have a chance to pitch your book to the community. And I got to tell you, it's incredible to see how many people will like and share your work. And realize my favorite thing is I'll put a pitch up and I'll have somebody message go, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And it's a wonderful feeling to realize that you're connecting with these other readers or writers. Another part of Twitter that hashtag that's really cool is chance to connect. And it's chance #2 connect.
That's a hashtag?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can't remember the person who runs this off the top of my head, but it's the second Tuesday of the month. She'll put up questions on Twitter, and you use the hashtag chance to connect, and writers come in from all over. They'll respond to the questions, and you start meeting each other that way. And that's how I've actually met a lot of really cool followers.
Mm-hmm.
And we message each other, we check in, we see how we're doing. And if we know that there's like pit mat or pitch wars going on, we'll share each other's information or retweet each other's information. So it's
That's
a
awesome.
great way to connect with the community.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Twitter chats and things like that, I'll throw out a plug for Rachel Thompson's
Hmm.
hashtag book marketing chat on Wednesdays, and that's a great one too to learn information about book marketing and to connect. And she brings a lot of experts on as well to talk about different successful things. So I'll just throw that out there while we're
That's
talking.
wonderful. I'll definitely have to check that up. I'm
Yeah.
always learning about the marketing game.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's another reason I think why community is so important, because it can get overwhelming really, really fast.
Oh,
So,
yes.
I'm a huge, I wish that I had thought of naming my company Rising Tide Press, because I feel exactly the same way. Like the ship, we all rise when one
Yep.
ship rises. I'm totally with you on that. And um and the other thing we talked with Angela Ford about in her seminar about working with other authors. And it's really sad to me, like when I see somebody who gets shelled up because they're afraid to share their work with other writers, they're
Right.
afraid to do these types of things. But I have found it's quite the opposite, that the writing community is so unique in the fact that we are willing, generally speaking, new people get a little bit shy, but once they realize, oh my gosh, if I promote this person, they're going to promote me back.
Hmm.
But I mean, if you think about it, people who love to read are going to want to read everything they can in a particular genre. And like
Exactly.
Angela was saying, that her readers are always like, when's your next book coming out? When's your next book coming out? She's like, oh my gosh, it takes me 4 months to write a book, so what am I
Right.
going to do in the meantime? I want to still keep giving them stuff that they're going to want to read. So I share books that are like mine, and those authors reciprocate. So totally agree. It makes me sad when somebody comes in and they're like, I had this case with a client of mine who was like, this person just reached out to me and asked me to be on their launch team and to promote their book. But I said no, because the topic is so similar to mine. And I'm like, that's exactly who you should be doing launch
Right.
team and promoting with, because you're going to want them to reciprocate that when your book comes out
Exactly.
across community. And one of you may be writing a book that maybe her community likes your book better and your community likes her book better. Who cares? You both win.
Exactly. I did something similar to that when Purple Door District came out. So I had found an author on Instagram called Marion Mavis, who had just published The Supremacy Witch, which happened to be on my birthday, which I just thought was really funny.
Awesome.
The cover of her book was purple. My cover is purple. They're both have elements of witches and urban
Uh-huh.
fantasy in there. So I messaged her and I said, hey, do you want to do a joint giveaway on our accounts where we give signed copies of our books to people? So we were both promoting that across our accounts. And, we got some more followers, and we got sent the books out to people who won. And it was really cool to do that.
Yeah.
And I love that. Again, we're not competing. We're actually trying to help each other
Right.
succeed. And it's fantastic.
And you really, truly do. Just like giving away free copies of your book really, truly works, even though
Yes.
people
Yeah.
don't
It
get
may
that.
not feel like it, but it does.
It
It does.
does work. It does work. Okay, well, that's awesome. So, what about some more online sites for marketing? And I know you're really involved in things like right now you have a promo, or not a promo, a book cover competition going on and things like that. Do you want to talk about some of those opportunities for
Sure.
building both community and following?
Yes. So the site that I'm through right now is called All Author. I think it's allauthor.com. And they have monthly cover contests. And, it'd be amazing to win, but I don't go in with the idea of I'm going to win the whole contest, but rather exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So my book is up there. All my profile information is on that site. So people can go to it. They can see who I am. They can see what I do, and they can see what works I've written. And so the past few days I've been posting, hey, the contest is going to be over soon, if you can go vote. And I've noticed people have been starting to join the website
Mm-hmm.
as well.
I did.
Yes, I
Good
saw.
recommendation.
I
Awesome. I have
saw
nothing in my profile, but
Don't worry, it takes time. The other really cool package thing that you can do is I think it was $24, they will do a like 6-month marketing promo where
wow.
you can type in Amazon reviews and do a GIF, however you want to pronounce it, generator, and it'll show your cover, it'll show the review, and then they post it on Twitter.
Awesome.
So I don't even have to do that. They do that. They also will create banners for you that you can download and you can share wherever. So like it's a really good price for that kind of marketing.
Yeah.
So All Author is great for that. Goodreads and BookBub are both really good for marketing your book. BookBub tends to promote like the new big books that are coming out, but you can also put in a request for them to feature your story, which that'll go out to a ton of different people. So that's fantastic. And Goodreads, I mean, there's a lot of different people who are on Goodreads.
Yeah.
And I've gotten the majority of my reviews, I've actually gotten from Goodreads for the book. And I've followed a bunch of people and just met a bunch of different authors and writers on there, which has been really nice.
Yeah. That's
Um,
cool. And then in Goodreads, you have the communities and the forums too. So
mhm.
you can also connect with people who like to read the types of books that you're reading or writing.
Mhm. The other one that I would actually recommend, and I know some people might, there's a debate about this, is there's a website called Wattpad.
I've
And
heard, I haven't tried to
yes,
use it yet, but I've heard people talking about it.
there's been some who basically what it is you publish your work on there. It's like I like to think of it as like fan fiction
Mhm,
website where
mhm.
you just post chapters up and people can read and get to know you. So I've started doing that. I'll post short stories. I have one main story that I'm writing on there. I'm actually part of a group called the Fae Folk on there, which is fantasy writing. So I write discussion articles and I'm part of a podcast with them too.
Cool.
So that again, reach out to the community. But Wattpad is actually nice exposure to your writing because people get a chance to read a piece of what you've written for free, so they
Mhm.
know what they're getting into. So I
Yeah.
put up the very first chapter of the Purple Door District on there, making it very clear it was just a preview of the book and then included the link. But at the same time, I'm including completed stuff as well.
Right.
They have forums on there as well where I've been on a lot of discussions about fantasy, urban fantasy, character development, world building, things like that. And if you're a new writer, it's kind of a really cool way to test the waters to see if people are interested in your writing or what advice and suggestions that they have to offer. I mean, you're going to still have the people who just like to write crude comments because
As they
that's
are.
they're trolls. Um, but honestly, I feel like a lot of people are very genuine, and you
Mhm.
can do contests, and including cover contests, writing contests, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a way that you can kind of promote some of your work or just yourself as an author. And
Well,
so
before you go on, I'm sorry, were you going to say something more about other
yeah, I
things
was just going
that
to say one more. Submittable. Submittable is actually a great way to find writing contests that are out
I
there.
did not realize that. We use
Yeah,
Submittable for people to submit their blog posts to our site, but I didn't know you could find writing contests.
yeah. A lot of places are actually using it as their generator so that
Mhm.
that's where you upload your stuff. But you can actually say, I'm looking for poetry, fantasy,
Mhm.
fiction,
That's
nonfiction,
awesome.
etc. And they'll show you what places are connected with Submittable, when the due dates are, and all that kind of stuff. So I've found a lot of really amazing contests through there. So
That's
that's a
so
way
cool.
to find, you know, a method of sending in your work and hopefully getting it published and getting it out there for people.
That's so cool. You know, I'd like to make a note or just a comment about the fan fiction sites and submitting your work and putting it out there, because I'm sure there's somebody sitting here thinking, I cannot put my work out there before it's published. What if somebody steals it? And to you, I would say, go watch Helen Sedgwick's interview. If we're not today, I think hers comes out on day 3. It's all about copyright and how you're protected. But the nutshell version is that the moment you write it, you're protected by copyright. So don't worry about people stealing your work. What I do want to say is that I did a little research project because I was really curious. I just started publishing some fiction. I'd been all nonfiction before this. And I was really curious about how a book takes off like 50 Shades of Grey did. Like, what happened? How did that happen? You know, whether you approve of the subject or not, like, that was a phenomenal experience. She was a self-published author who then got picked up by a publishing house and hit the top of the charts and stayed there longer than I think anybody's ever stayed at the #1 slot. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
But she started by posting her writing on fan fiction. She was not just some writer who wrote a book and sent it to an agent and they loved it and they published it and it sold 5 million copies. No, she was writing her stuff. She was building her following. She already had about 5 million followers on her fan fiction sites before. And then those followers kicked in for her. When they picked it up and published it, they all went and left reviews and bought it and all that kind of stuff. So don't be afraid of the fan sites. They're great followers.
And it's a great way to get to practice your writing.
Absolutely.
I mean, 50 Shades of Grey was essentially a Twilight fan fiction story that her followers thought was so interesting, and they loved it so much that they kept encouraging her, you should publish this, you should publish this. So of course she reworked it so it wasn't the same thing as Twilight. Excuse me. So, you know, there are a lot of people who kind of raise their noses up at people who do fanfic writing. It's still writing. It's still storytelling. And
it's the best kind of storytelling because you get engagement from the people who are going to buy your book.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. You get immediate validation of, is this good or does this suck? You know?
And the other thing too is that for people who are worried about, you know, copyright and everything like that, honestly, excuse me, if I post a story on Wattpad or fanfic, it dates when I post it. So if another book pops up 2 months later that's so much like mine's already posted there.
Right,
so
you're covered.
I still have that. And I'm fine with sharing that. I understand that not every piece that I write, I'm going to get paid for. That's not... It's not going to happen. I like to write. I love to write stories. I love to share stories, especially including a diverse community, because that means more people can see themselves in the book. That's one of the big things with the Purple Door District and Fates and Furies too, is I have a diverse cast. And I know there's a discussion on Twitter where they've been talking about doing the brownie points for having a diverse cast, and it's like, it has nothing to do with that. For one thing, the story is set in Chicago. There's a mixed group of people in Chicago.
Right.
So I wanted to have a lot of different characters, and I had sensitivity readers go through it as well to make sure I wasn't unintentionally being naive or a jerk. Because it's important to have that. If you want to reach out to your community, you have to create characters that they can see themselves in. Everybody has a unique voice. Everybody should be able to see themselves in a book. And I think a lot of people there are those who are scared of, you know, the strong woman in the books, or the diverse cast, or the LGBT theme because, you know, LGBT agenda. No, it's just trying to include everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have an incredible world full of amazing people. We need to celebrate that in our writing.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And if you, to your point, if anybody has never heard the term sensitivity reader before, if you are writing, I tell you, when I see the worst and the most hateful reviews, and that is if you are a straight person and you write an LGBTQ character that does not behave like one would, you will get your behind handed to you. So a sensitivity reader is somebody who is of the community that you're writing about. You
Mhm.
hand it to them, they read through it and they say, I would never say or do anything like that. This is so anti, whatever. Or they say, this is fantastic. Have you been hiding in our community, or
And
somewhere along those lines.
I learned so much from my sensitivity readers because I mean,
Uh-huh.
they would make suggestions about this, different things of what I wrote, and be like, "That's not exactly how we would word it in the community," or
Right.
"This is more of a generalization." I was like, "Oh, that's fine. I can completely change that. That's not a problem."
Right.
And you have to be careful about that. Jim Jim Hines, he told us a story about he in one of his books he'd written about a black woman character who had a type of persona
Mhm.
that wasn't deemed desirable by some of the readers, and
Mm.
a woman came up to him and said, "Why is the black woman the one who acts this way?"
Yeah.
And the moment he realized it, he didn't write a character like that again.
Right.
I mean, he included diversity, of course, but he tried to stay away from that stereotype. And
Right.
I think that's important. You need to listen to your community. If you have beta readers or advanced reader copy folks telling you you are being, racist, or you
Mhm.
are, um, what's the word? I'm blanking on the word right now. Um, if you are misrepresenting people that are not like you, then you need to listen to the community because they're going to know more than you would.
And see how we made that shift? We just went from your community of writers to your community of readers, but
Yep,
community all the way through is
exactly.
so important to the
It's so
writing
important.
process. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And especially these days, because everybody is hypersensitive about everything. Whether
Hmm.
that's a good or a bad thing, we're not having that discussion right now. But the fact is, you will get some, unless your goal is to make a lot of people very upset, which some people like to do. No, I love that. But even, okay, so we're running out of time here, and I don't want to, we could talk all day long. I mean, so many things to talk about. But okay, so the important things, let's wrap it back up again. Tell
Mhm.
us your biggest takeaways here for community, and maybe if there's any tips or resources that we haven't covered yet.
Of course. So the biggest thing to remember with community is you're not alone.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to reach out if you're having a hard time, especially when it comes to depression, anxiety, self-doubt, self-loathing, all of that. Do not be afraid to reach out to the community and find help. That's totally fine. That's totally normal. We all go through it.
Mhm.
I can't emphasize that enough. For when I write my blog post, I tend to put that in a lot, is you're
Yeah.
not alone.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, don't be afraid to reach out. Try different types of avenues. If working with Twitter doesn't work for you, try Facebook. There are a ton of Facebook writing groups. So there's
Mhm.
fantasy groups, the Other World group, and I can give that to you as well. There are tons of writing groups on there that if you're nervous about seeing people in person, you can communicate and connect that way.
Mhm.
If you want to be a person who gets in a big group in real life, look at your library or at local events that are going on, open mic nights.
Mhm.
See if there's writing groups available, and if there's not, see what you can do to create one. If there's not a community for you, then create a community, because likely there's somebody else out there who's looking for that community as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Agreed.
And the big thing too is we're all in this together. And as Brian says, rising tide,
Mhm.
lift each other up. It's a lot easier to get through the day when you're celebrating each other rather than trying to knock
Yes.
each other down.
Yes. And life in general is just more fun that way. I
Yes.
mean, yeah. I mean, and it's hard sometimes when you see somebody having the kind of success that you wish you were having, and you wonder, but honestly, if that's the case, instead of getting upset, help promote that person, share that
Yes.
person, comment on that person's stuff, and then go ask them to mentor you.
Yes,
What did you do? How did
exactly.
you do this? Can you help me? Will you? Most writers that I have come across, unless they're just being bombarded, will help a fellow writer out.
Yeah.
And if you don't have time, then go watch the segments here on how to create a course on Thinkific and make
Yes.
yourself a little course that every time somebody comes along and says, how did you do this? What are you doing? You can say, here's my free or paid course, you know?
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh.
This
No,
is
this has been so much fun.
you provide so much incredible information. I really appreciate it.
No
I'm
problem.
glad that we included more fiction writers this year, because last year it was very heavy on the nonfiction side, and I didn't want to leave out our fiction friends, especially from a very
Appreciate it.
yes, exactly, and from a very selfish point of view. I really want to get into I've got these books in my head that are going to kill me if I don't get them out eventually.
I know the feeling.
So thank you so much for your time and all the information that you provided. We'll make sure that all these links and all this information is included so people can reach out to you. And thank you.
Just the last thing I'd like to say is that if any of you are going through depression, anxiety, or just any of those feelings, feel free to reach out to me on any of
Yeah.
my social media. I'm happy to talk with you, especially on Twitter. Go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mental health is an important, very, very important issue.
Yeah.
Many of us struggle with and are afraid to tell anybody about, but you're not alone, as Erin said.
So happy writing, everybody.
Thank you.